Hey Paul, how you doing?
Morning, I'm good. How are you?
I'm really, really, really good. Thank you. Really, just really happy to be here this morning. We met. We haven't even met face to face yet. We met through like the Opera Holland Park virtual day that they have. Um,
Yeah, it's a strange new world, isn't it?
it is. It's turned into a kind of a virtual world where everybody meets each other online. Uh,
Yeah,
but Opera Holland Park, that virtual day was incredible. I mean,
yeah,
they do so much as it is already, but to be able to move that kind of feeling of what they do on a day-to-day basis online and still have that same family feel and camaraderie, I thought was really, really, really impressive.
yeah. We did the sort of meet and greet online for what would have been Margot Le Rouge.
Yeah, yeah,
That was on Monday,
yeah, yeah,
and I hadn't really thought about it. Not that it slipped my mind, but I was just busy doing other things, and then just to sit there and see, scroll the screen across and see what the team would have been, you just go, oh man. But
yeah,
it was lovely to do because what that's the big thing we've missed, really, isn't it? The social side of things.
yeah, yeah. Morning, Rebecca. Yeah, I mean, I must have missed that. I was supposed to be there.
Oh, were you?
I didn't realize it was on Monday.
I must have missed an email as well. I only realised very late on.
Yeah, oh my God. So, good morning, everybody. I am Nadine Benjamin, and I'm the intuitive Verdi soprano. I am a certified mind coach, NLP mind coach. I'm a certified high performance coach. I'm a healer, and I'm also a professional opera singer who loves singing all over the world. I'm currently on 12-week stay at home. And while I'm on 12-week stay at home, I thought I would share with you some of my coaching skills and also some of the wonderful people that I've met along my journey. I really have a passion for connecting, celebrating, and championing people. And this morning we are here to champion and celebrate Welsh Irish bass baritone Paul Carey Jones, who was born in Cardiff and studied at the Queen's College, Oxford, the Royal Academy of Music, and the National Opera Studio. He has appeared as a principal guest for artist for companies such as the Royal Opera House, Welsh National Opera, Scottish Opera, and many others. In addition to his singing work, Paul appears frequently as an audition panel member, media commentator, competition adjudicator, and increasingly as a teacher, language coach, and mentor to young singers. As a writer, he has contributed articles to Wagner News, the Music Club of London, and the Mastersingers, as well as his online blog Ranitidine and Tonic. So lovely to have you here with us, Paul. Really, really. Morning, Susan. Lovely to see you. As I say every morning, the longer we get into this process and the longer that things start to lift as well, please make sure to remember that Paul and I, neither of us are medical doctors or psychiatrists. If you need that form of support and for your mental health and for your well-being, please, please, please reach out. And people, if you know someone who needs that support, please, please, please pick up the phone, check if they're okay, and see if there's anything you can do. Thank you so much, everybody. Hey, Paul, how are
Hi.
you? So it's so lovely to have you here with us this morning, and what a treat. I mean, when I saw that I know you as an opera singer, but then when I saw you as a video gamer, I mean, tell us, what is that all about?
I, for many years, I sort of, when people said, "Oh, what's your hobby?" I'd go, "Oh, reading, that sort of thing," because you want a respectable. There's a certain image that opera singers have, and you want to have a respectable hobby, and
Mm.
you want to play the role. But I always loved video games when I was a kid. We had a ZX Spectrum, which I used to
Mm,
play with my brothers. My little brother is a genius, a video games genius.
really?
And I think if there was such a thing in those days as a professional video gamer, which there is now,
Mm,
he could have been pro. So he was really good. I'm
mm.
terrible. I suck at video games. So it's something. Um, Gosh, it taps into what we were talking before we went on air. That when your hobby becomes your career, you can lose track of, you can't work out eventually whether you enjoy it or you enjoy being good at it. And with video games, I'm no good at them. So I know that I'm enjoying it for the actual sake of the process. It's something you can do. It's one of those things, though. It is like reading in a sense that it's a good hobby for an opera singer, because in your downtime, you want to be doing something that doesn't involve using your voice too much. And so, it's something I've always done. And it's kind of edging towards being a respectable hobby now that you can, as an adult, admit that you do. So there was a period about probably about more than 10 years ago now, where I was playing online games very seriously. I played World of Warcraft, and I had a guild, and we had 25 teenagers from Romania getting together twice a week to go and do raiding and all this sort of thing. You'd have your headset on and you'd be coordinating them all. Funnily enough, during lockdown, somebody said this online the other day, like the people who've probably coped with lockdown best are online gamers, because that's kind of what their social life is anyway.
Their world.
Yeah. So it's existed. This online existence has existed sort of in the shadows for quite some time. I kind of drifted away from that then, from taking. I got to a point where I thought, I remember I was meeting a friend in a pub, and I left early to go home, because I had to go and do a raid online, and I thought, okay, this has taken over my life. So I then sort of stepped back from the online group stuff by and large. So I've been solo gaming for the last few years.
People can actually watch you play, can't they?
This is kind of something I still don't quite understand. But my 10-year-old nephew, you give him some downtime and he'll play a video game, and in the downtime from the video game, he'll be watching other people play video games on YouTube.
Wow.
And I thought, and with the modern consoles, with my PlayStation now, it's very, very easy to stream it. You just sort of press a couple of buttons and anyone can watch you play online, and you can send it to YouTube or whatever. So I started doing that. I'll tell you this story. You'll like this. There's a game called Red Dead Redemption 2, which is an open world role-playing game where you're a cowboy. It's been out for about a year and a half now. And one of the aspects of it is that your hair grows in the game. So, you can go to the hairdressers, get your hair cut, and then, a day later, or a week later in the game, your hair will have grown. And you can grow it, and it's got levels 1 to 7. You can also grow your beard and moustache, and so you can decide to shave or not shave. And you can grow the beard and hair to level 7, and then it stops. But then you can find these things called hair tonics, and if you drink the hair tonic in a certain way, in a certain routine, your hair grows and can get to level 10.
Yeah.
And I was the first, as far as I can tell, I was the first person in the world to get my beard and hair to level 10.
Woo!
And I didn't know that at the time. I thought, I'll crack this, worked out. I mean, everybody else was playing. This is the great thing about these games, is you can play them however you want, and everybody else was busy, robbing banks and whatever you're supposed to do in the game. And I was there going, I wonder if I can get my beard to level 10. So I did, and I made a video of it, because I was looking online for tips, going, how do you do this? And I couldn't find anything. So I said, well, there's nothing online, so I'll make a video of how I got. I haven't checked recently, but it got to something like 14,000 views.
Wow.
And I had people sending from all over the world, sending me messages going, how did you do this? I can only get mine to level 9. How do you do the last step? So, I became, for a while, I've not checked that YouTube channel recently, but for a while I became the hair and beard guru on Red Dead Redemption 2 globally. So it's a whole different world, and you get to play a character, and you get to sort of escape from the real world without using your voice too much. It was a great hobby for it.
My only claim to fame on this whole video gaming thing is that on their last Final Fantasy, I was the one that sang the theme tune for Final Fantasy. I had no idea that when I was in Abbey Road Studios that I was singing this theme tune. They wanted it in opera, and they wanted it in pop, and they wanted it in rock. So I did it in all three.
You are a genuine video gaming legend, because Final Fantasy is massive.
I know. I had no idea.
most teenagers would just, you tell them that and they'll just fall, they'll collapse in awe.
I did have to sign a couple of autographs of people who have actually got the game. They made me sign their copies, so that was quite interesting.
You're a legend.
I love it. I love it. So tell us, Paul. The whole thing around opera singing. Like, how did that come about for you? Where are you now with it?
I was more of an actor when I was a kid at school. I grew up in Wales, and certainly in those days, and still now, there's a very strong culture of performing arts, of music, especially, and singing, especially, as I'm sure you know. But
incredible. I mean, you're a Welshman. As soon as you said knowing that you're a Welshman, you're going to have an incredible voice. I mean, it's that thing, isn't it? You always think, well, I always do. I'm not going to assume everybody does. But when I hear that there's a Welsh person about to sing, I know that their voice is going to be incredible.
It's interesting. There are some really bad Welsh singers as well, I should point out.
I've never heard them.
But I think it's that thing. I was listening to I love cricket, and I was listening to the radio. They had Curtly Ambrose on the radio a couple of years back, and they were asking him, or the English guys were asking him, how do we develop a proper English fast bowler, which we didn't have at the time. And he said, you don't develop fast bowlers, you find them. And I think that's very true of opera singers as well, that you have to, there's a lot of learning and development to do, obviously, but you have to have the raw material. And to do the way you do that is that you uncover the potential early on, which means that everybody has to sing, all the kids have to sing, and then you'll find the ones who are naturally inclined for it, just physiologically. So that's the secret, I would say, of the Welsh system, is that all Welsh kids sing. Now, that's like everywhere else. That's a bit in danger at the moment, under threat, because as kind of culture goes a bit more global, Welsh kids are suffering a little bit from the same thing as kids anywhere else. They feel a bit embarrassed about it, or it's something that with boys especially. So that's something we need to be aware of. But anyway, traditionally, and still to a large extent now, we're good at uncovering the natural talent.
Yeah.
And that's the first step, and that's what's so important, I think, about music in schools. We talk a lot about diversity at our end of the business, but ultimately people don't really want to hear this because it's hard and it takes a long time. But ultimately, diversity of any sort in casting at the professional level has got to start in schools, and there's no point us complaining about it at our end if we're not going to put the hard work into making sure that kids in comprehensive schools have access to classical music. That's
really interesting, actually, Paul, that conversation, because I think there are a lot of grassroots things for children in schools in terms of opera being brought into schools, but for me, what I've noticed, my observation is that when they get a bit older, they're left. And so there's no relationship. How do you cross over if there's no bridge?
Yeah.
And I think that's for me, that's the observation that I've recognised. So it's interesting that you say that. And Rebecca Louise is just saying absolutely. So she must be talking about with you, Paul, and agreeing with that,
Yeah, we've got to have, that you're absolutely right. That we've got to have a continuous ladder.
Yeah.
And there's no point a kid then getting one foot on the ladder, and then there's a big gap in the middle of it.
Yeah.
So it's hard. It's hard and it's unglamorous to do. You know what I mean? It's much people want politicians and the people at the top of opera companies and things want instant results, so they can say, look, there we go, that was a problem, we fixed it. But the answer is actually, you know as well as I do how long it takes to train to do this.
Yes.
So any proper solution is going to take 10, 20 years to filter through.
Yeah. So, but what about you? Can you remember the first time you sang? What was that like for you when you were?
I was really bad before my voice broke. And I was a really, really shy kid as well, so but I really loved acting, and that at the time that seemed really weird to me, and a lot of people, I think it surprised a lot of people that I don't think I was very good at it either to start with. But I did one of those what do you call it, the personality tests where you come out as, you know, and the introvert extrovert bit with me came out as massively introvert. And I said, well, that doesn't make any sense. I'm a performer.
Yeah.
But then the more I read about it, the more I think, actually, that does make sense. That is kind of who I am.
Yeah.
So I found that as sort of a channel as a kid with the acting. And then my voice broke really early. I must have been about 11, maybe just 12. But I was the first boy in my year to have a broken voice. So they used to, the other kids used to get me to do, you remember there was a Baby Sham advert where a guy goes, hey, I'll have a baby sham. And they'd get me to do that. That was on TV at the time. And so that suddenly I was the guy with the low voice, and they, you know, I was popular for about 6 months, and then they all caught up. So then I started singing bass, and I joined my local church choir, and I was in the school choir, and, you know, like I say, I was lucky that the opportunities were there to develop that side of things. And meanwhile, the acting was bubbling along. I got a small role on a Welsh soap opera on TV. I was still really bad at it, you know, but I enjoyed doing it, and people kept asking. And then eventually, you know, when I was an older teenager, oh, that's right. My little brother at this time he'd been in South Pacific with my uncle Ivor, was in an amateur operatic society that did music, that did sort of Gilbert Sullivan and Rogers and Hammerstein, all that stuff. So he'd been in South Pacific, and they were casting for Sound of Music. I love and he wanted to, so he was dead keen to do Kurt. And he got me to go along to the audition for Friedrich. So they picked us both as the Von Trapp brothers. And that was the start, really, of putting the acting and the singing together on stage. But I still didn't have singing lessons. I had singing lessons when I was, and again, this is about music in schools. The county did a scholarship in those days, which I found out about through one of my choirs. And you know, I badgered my music teacher to set me up for an audition for it. So then the county paid for music lessons for singing lessons for me at the Welsh College of Music and Drama. This is when I was about 16, 17, with Beatrice Unsworth, who, you know, God bless her, because this takes a lot of bravery. I realise this now more than I did then. At the end of the first half-hour lesson, she said to me, "Now look, you know, don't get ahead of yourself." And she said, "I can't promise anyone a Covent Garden career, but if you want to consider this as a career, as a professional career, then you do have the tools to do it." And that was
at the Royal Opera House as well.
Do you know what I mean? I thought of that, you know, the first day that I stepped on stage there, and you know, the amount of, you know, she'd only heard me sing for, you know, it was a 30-minute lesson, and I was 17 and didn't know what I was doing. But so to stick her neck out and to open my mind to that possibility at that stage took a huge amount of bravery on her part, because the easiest thing to do with young singers is to say, you know, is to hedge your bets, isn't it? It's to say, like, oh, well, you know, you've got potential, but blah, 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 blah. But she didn't put the but in. She just said, look, if you want to do this as a career, then you should think about it. You don't have to. You could do something else. And, you know, at the time I was off to study physics at university. And I said, should I change course? And she said, no, keep that. There's plenty of time. Get another string to your bow, get a safety net, and but just keep thinking about this. So then I studied physics. I did 3 years as a teacher in secondary school, and then towards the end of that I thought to myself, so I was like 22, 23, and I was getting a bit frustrated with it as a hobby, because I was like, I could feel that there was more to come, but I couldn't quite get there because I didn't have the time and the energy to do it, to combine it with a job. And I said to myself, you know, if I wake up one day when I'm 40 and I haven't tried this, then I'm going to regret it. So I bit the bullet and applied to music colleges. And now I am 40 something, and it's kind of interesting looking back and going, well, two things really. Looking back and going, yeah, that was right. Here I am. You know, there's never been a point at which I've gone, I've made it now. This is it.
No.
But there's also, you know, I also do know that that 22-year-old me was right. I would have regretted it if I hadn't done it, if I hadn't, you know, explored this. But I'm also kind of doing that middle-aged thing of going, okay, well, that was 20-something years ago. And if I'm lucky, I've got another 20 something years of my career ahead of me.
Absolutely.
So I'm like halfway.
Yeah.
You look back and go, what have I done up to now? And then you kind of go, well, what am I going to do with the rest of it?
Yeah, it's so interesting that, because I can see Morning Marjorie, I can see Marjorie in the chat, and she went back to, she was a teacher and an educationalist in play. I spoke to her yesterday.
Oh yes, I saw that.
But but she went back and she'd had the same kind of revelation as you, and kind of went and did a postgrad in opera and song, and became a student at 56 at Trinity. So it's that thing, and it's what I'm seeing all the time, that we always have a choice to not live in regret. And I really hear you, Paul, that we have a choice at any point in our lives to say, actually, I want to jump off this bandwagon and I want to go and see if this other passion or this other dream or this other, desire that's within me can be manifested, can be fulfilled. And I think that takes a lot of courage and a lot of bravery. But for every person that I've heard do it, there has been no regrets.
Yeah. I think the important thing is this: you should never let anyone else define success for you.
Exactly.
Because I think, and that sounds obvious, doesn't it? But it especially in this career. I see a lot of, I work with a lot of unhappy people. That's a strange thing to say.
No, it isn't. I
know what it is. It's and you look at them and you go, these are really successful singers. Successful,
Yeah.
But what it is that they have been chasing someone else's definition, society or whatever you want to call it, the world's definition of success, and they've never allowed themselves to sit down and define their own success.
Yes.
And as soon as you do that, you get interesting answers.
Yes.
But just the process is interesting. So I was talking at the beginning of this lockdown thing to a colleague, and I said, this is it sounds trite to say it, but it is.
Stop it! Just it's the truth.
It's an opportunity if we choose to take it, because because you get locked on this conveyor belt, don't you, of a career and success and the next, climbing the next mountain.
Yeah.
It's a chance for all of us. All of us now have to decide what we're going to be at the end of this, and many of us will decide to go back to being opera singers. And that's fine, but it's a decision in itself, because at the moment, none of us are opera singers. There's no opera singers in the world, essentially. So we're all going to have to decide again to do this as a job, or that gives us the liberty to decide to do something else if we want, because nobody's going to judge anyone at this point. If a year ago someone had quit being an opera singer and gone off to do something else, there'd always be people who'd go, "Oh, I'd never quite made it." But anyone could go off and do something else now, and they'd just go, when did they finish? 2020? Oh, coronavirus.
Yeah.
So it's liberating if we choose to see it that way. And I mean, like I say,
the neck can cut the noose free if they want to.
Yeah, but equally, we can choose to put our head back in the noose. And most of us will do, but that's a decision as well. This is it's making us think about what it is we do and why, and do we really want to do it?
Yeah, I mean, your blog is, where do we go from here? And I just heard you say that none of us are opera singers. Well, I'm gonna kind of challenge that just a tiny bit, because I have been still an opera singer and I have been singing. But the difference in my singing is, rather than doing live, I haven't been doing solo live things, because for me that wouldn't work, because I need that rapport with my audience. For me, but the collaborative projects that I've been doing as an opera singer online, I have found a great thing, even though challenging. And I've had to learn new skills, like where to put the camera, where do you tape it up, where does the sound go, where does this go with that, and so that's been fun. But I do believe that that's where we're going to be for at least kind of 12 months. I mean, what are your thought processes? I mean, you've been blogging about this and all the rest of it. What are your kind of thought processes around it?
Well, my partner's a research nurse, and one of the things that happened very early on is that they switched them all. She normally researches hematology, but they switched them all to COVID research. So she's been working on COVID treatments. So, which means that I've been kind of 4 or 5 weeks just from listening to her. I've been about 4 or 5 weeks ahead of the curve on this, not through any skill or talent of my own, just from picking up what she's saying. So I remember asking her in early February when this was first starting in China. I was reading about it, going, well, this doesn't sound too serious. 1% mortality rate. That doesn't sound like such a problem. And she, quickly explained to me why it is a big problem and would be. So she spotted it straight away because that's her job. And so then when when this first sort of then filtered through to the business in March, and people were companies were saying, it might be over in 3 or 4 weeks or a couple of months. I was like, because she was clear that it wouldn't. It was always the way out of this was, medically and scientifically speaking, was always very obviously going to be messy and long term. So 12 months, I think, is a really good. That's what I said from the start. Is like, how do we get from how do we get through the next year? That's the question for all of us, and we're still asking that. It's a tricky question, but one of the things I found, just thinking back to something you said there about collaboration, one of the things I found is that I've been talking to people a lot more than I did. My agent is on furlough, which means that I've had to do a lot more direct conversations than I would. It's quite easy to go, oh, my agent will deal with that, but a couple of things I've had to actually deal with directly. And it's interesting what creatively comes out of that. And that sort of complete wiping of the diary. You've got nothing in the diary, so you think, what am I going to do? And it's a blank canvas. But it's an opportunity to look at everything we do in the business and how we've done it. I struggle to think of any problem that's been caused by this which wasn't a problem before. I think what it's done is exposed a lot of the things about the business that have been wrong for a very long time, but that because nobody has any time. Time is money. There's not enough money in the business, and so nobody has any time to step back and go, how do we change this? Is there a better way of doing this? Something I read very early on about the impact of this on society in general. I think we were talking about, that's right, we were talking about the supermarket, when the supermarket shelves are empty. And it wasn't really a problem of there not being enough stuff. It was just that we've built this system of just-in-time delivery. And that goes on in music too. And the thing this guy said was, we concentrate on efficiency in systems. And he said efficient systems are also fragile systems. And so we talk about efficiency as if it's a good thing in itself, an unequivocally good thing. But if you put the word every time you see the word or hear the word efficient, if you put the word fragile in as well, then you think about it differently. So for instance, you're building a car and you say, let's make this car as fast and efficient as possible. So you make it out of plywood, which is great until it crashes.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And then you realize there's a reason that you don't go all out for efficiency. So I think going forward, we all need to take a step back and look at how fragile we've made this system that we've got in the interests of trying to save money and make it efficient and blah, blah, blah. But, that there's what we're finding now is kind of we've been living without a safety net. And I think
what's really interesting when you say that is, I, as a performer, I've always booked myself 2 years in advance. I didn't have the luxury of having an agent for my whole career. I've had a manager who helps me to go through my contracts, but mainly I get my work. So, when I came into this situation, I used to feel bad about that because I was like, oh, well, but this is normal to me. This is how I work. I'm a producer, and if there's a gap, I'll just make work. That came so natural to me. And as I was going through my career, I've been realizing that that's not natural to everybody. So I really hear what you're saying right now is when people have got to the point where the diary's been wiped, I know still what I'm doing a year in advance, even though 1 year's gone. I still know what's coming in a year. So I can choose then to define how I live this next year without feeling like and then just build the next couple of years after that, because that's what I'll do. But it's that thing, isn't it? What you were saying, that fragility now.
Yeah.
Also going to open people out to thinking, well, what other skills could I possibly do? I only know how to sing.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a really good strategy as well for the business. Is that, again, with this aim for efficiency, time gets squeezed, and ultimately in opera, the person at the end of the tube of toothpaste is the singer. And when you squeeze, so I've been banging on for many years now about rehearsal time, because rehearsal time just keeps getting shorter and shorter and shorter. And you can do it, but ultimately the person that suffers is the singer on the stage. And we need to be honest, I think, as a business. And we don't want to do, because we're all a bit because of the cliche of the fragile opera singer, of the demanding diva, and none of us want to stamp our feet. It's such a misguided cliche these days, because we're all in this precarious position. None of us have any security, and it's very, very rare you see that sort of behavior from singers now, because we can't, we don't want to get sacked. But we do need to make it clear, I think, what we need to do our job properly, and most of that is time, because you can't keep squeezing that tube of toothpaste forever without it becoming empty. You need time to refill it, and the business is like going, can we put more performances in? Can we squeeze the time between performances, or we do a dress rehearsal on Monday and the performance on Tuesday, and you go, there comes a point where it won't do it. So we need to look after our singers better, and we as singers need to make it clear that there comes a point where you can't squeeze the tube of toothpaste anymore.
Yes.
There's no more toothpaste in there. I like this analogy. I've just made it up, but I'm going with it.
No, but I love it. That's the whole point of us just having a chat. That's why I love these sessions, because I do also think that a lot of singers have been afraid to speak up because they feel that they won't get employed again.
Yeah. I mean, the other aspect in which we need to be honest as a business overall, I think, is about the money thing.
Yes.
And I think
expensive.
This thing costs money. It's an expensive product. It's an expensive art form, and 95% of our audiences understand that. But I think we're too timid as an industry in going, because it's an expensive product, because it's a fantastic product, because we put a lot of love and care and time into it. It's not that we're all standing there going, I demand to make millions from it. It's that we want it to be good, and we want people to have when they come to the opera, to have a good evening out, and a really memorable, something that'll change their lives potentially. But that takes money, and I don't think it's a dirty word. It should be a dirty word to say to an audience, this show costs, not a precise figure, but a lot of money to put on, and therefore, tickets are going to cost more than £5 or something. You know what I mean? The same with the content online. I wrote a blog about that a lot of people picked up on. That this immediate thing that companies put their archive content online for nothing, while at the same time they were laying off their artists without paying. You go, well, could you not just put two and two together? And it's that something for nothing thing. I think in terms of recorded music, in terms of audio, I think we've lost that battle a long time ago with streaming. People just, and I'm as bad as anyone. We've decided we don't want to pay for recorded music. But I think in terms of video content, I think the tide has turned, and I think people do accept that, Netflix and Amazon Prime or whatever it is, Disney Plus, Sky Sports, people understand that if you want to watch something on telly these days, you pay for it, largely via subscription. And I don't think we're quite brave enough. A couple of channels are up and running and do have a proper business model, and I think the Met's channel has had 15,000 new subscribers since the start of this. So if we're just a bit more enterprising and a bit braver about asking, being honest with audiences about the costs of what we do, And the fact is, the reason I pay for Disney Plus is because I love Marvel movies and I want more of them. You know what I mean? So I'm happy to pay £5 a month, knowing that not just I can watch the ones that already exist, but they'll make more.
I just want to bring some of the people into the room with us, Paul. Michael Carter-Young is saying, choosing your own definition of success. Yes. Claire Pendleton-Holy is saying, fragility. So right. She's also saying, you are right, but to a company hiring us, time is money. That's also the same on the other side as well. Our time is money as well, Claire.
Yeah.
And Sani is saying, bonjour. And Claire is saying, companies should charge for online content. Surely people want to save the arts, so wouldn't mind paying.
Hello, Claire.
Totally agree with you, Paul. So it's also, we're saying, where do we go from here in terms of that video? Rebecca's just saying, I would like to subscribe to the Nadine Benjamin.
Yeah, channel. Me too.
Thank you so much. But I'd like all of us to have a channel. That was just what I was going to say, Rebecca. So that's really weird. What would that be like, do you think, Paul, if actually we all did our own channels and maybe we asked people to subscribe to those and pay some kind of subscription for those? What do you think about that?
Well, what's interesting is that's basically the Patreon model, isn't it? I only know that from Instagram. Yeah. That seems to be the big thing on Instagram.
Yeah.
With especially seems to be models. I assume that if you pay a subscription, they take their clothes off or something. I wouldn't know. Right? Yeah. And I'm not suggesting that's what we should do, but but it's definitely. Micah said they'd pay me to keep my clothes on, and but I think there's something to it. I think. What I'm wary of with that model is that I do think that many of our problems as an industry do come from this idea that we've built it such that we need rich sponsors, corporate or individuals, and that's this charge of elitism that gets thrown at us all the time. I don't believe in it, except for that aspect, because if you say to people, all right, I want you to shell out $500,000, let's say, to support this production, whatever it is, then they're going to want something in return for that, quite reasonably, and then you haven't got a level playing field for the audience. Not all the audience is getting the same experience. No. Now, as a thought experiment, I say, what if we went to the other extreme and said, there's 1,000 tickets for this, they're all going to cost exactly the same amount. And that's going to cover the cost of the show. And then you've got a proper egalitarian system for opera. So all the audience gets the same experience. You say, okay, who gets the nicer seats? Well, whoever books first gets the choice of seats. You know what I mean?
But then, do we then run into a thing where then the only people that can see opera is the ones that can afford it, and the ones that can't afford it won't be able to see it? So like I say, that's not. You'd never have that model in practice, but Holland Park aren't a million miles away from this, because that's kind of what they do. And then they have very specifically targeted subsidized seats, which are sometimes for kids, sometimes for first timers, sometimes for NHS workers and emergency services and so on. But that allows them to do that. So it's then a much more well thought through, and it's not the same every time. So it's then a much more thought through system of subsidy. At the moment, kind of what happens with the standard UK model is that the seats are expensive, except for very few that are sort of very cheap. So they then say, look, we've got 20 tickets for each performance, and they're only £10. But those go very, very quickly. So when you say to some, and generally not to first timers because they don't know the system. So when you say to people, there's a bit of a disconnect. I say to people, come to the opera. They go, it's very expensive. I said, it's not very expensive. There are tickets for £10, but they can never find those tickets. I always say the same thing as well. Yeah. So
that's the problem. Is so if we say we're trying to encourage you don't have to encourage first timers to the opera, but I think we'd generally agree that's a good thing overall, and we need that flow of new fans. How do you target cheaper tickets for them? I think the other thing that I've seen Holland Park do really well, because I use a different name when I buy tickets, so I get the Holland Park you know, I'm on the email list as a punter, as an audience member. The thing they do really well.
Because I do that as
yeah,
well.
yeah. This isn't my real name.
Yeah.
For good reason. So what they do very well is do this thing of following up. So they thought when I bought a ticket, whenever the first time was, they had me down in their system as a first-time opera goer, and they followed up very quickly with a thing going, come back, buy another ticket, and we'll give you whatever it was, 30% off, I can't remember.
Wow.
But you have to buy it in the next 2 weeks.
Oh.
So it's not something I just sort of sit on. It's like putting me on the spot going, did you like that? Did you like it enough to come back? If you did, you can save some money if you make that decision quickly. And I think that's something else we need to look at more is not so much first timers, because there's only so many first timers you can get. And some of them are going to go, I didn't like it. And that's fine, because it's not for everybody. But the people who did like it, how do we get them coming back? Because once you come back twice, once you've gone and gone again, then you're a fan, aren't you? So there's a lot of good thinking going on out there already about how we get people addicted.
Yeah, I mean, I love that, Paul. I mean, Claire Pendleton-Holly is saying Paul has to sing Wotan. Laurie is saying he must. He looks like him. Laurie Lichtenberg, exactly, and he sung it and studied the role for years, so I'd pay good money. And
thanks.
John Svenholm is just saying good morning, Stephen. So yeah, I mean, this is a really interesting kind of movement, I think, in terms of how we look at and how we address. I mean, there are some of us as well. I know Sani's here, and I have my own opera company. And I think as an artist, when you have your own opera company, that's exactly what you want. You want to build a relationship with your audience. You also want to bring things to the audience that they wouldn't necessarily see on a main stage. And I think that is also important when you're building those relationships as well. What value, what thing are they going to get differently from the main houses? Without what's the word, giving up on standard or excellence, you still have to bring those same things, because that's what we do. Our art form is excellent. And, you know, you can't be an opera singer and not, it just doesn't work. It's just too hard.
Yeah.
Otherwise.
Well, it's about building trust, isn't it? Because, you know, I think we need to be aware. Yeah. I know we are, but it doesn't, there's no harm to remind ourselves that asking people to give up an evening of their lives, several hours of their, you know, of their precious time, is a big thing. Yeah. And it's important not to wait. People talk about attention spans. I don't think attention spans are getting shorter. I don't think, you know, people make this glib assumption that kids have got short attention spans. I don't think they have. I think what they have is an intolerance for having their time wasted. Yeah. And because there's so many other things that everyone could be doing, there's so much choice now. So we have to be very careful that we don't waste people's time. And that therefore what we do is fabulous. Yes. Yeah. And that they trust us. So we take them on board. They learn to trust our commitment and to using their time wisely. Yeah. And then you can go, well, if you enjoyed that and that, how about this, which is a little bit beyond, you know, what you'd normally go for. Yeah. But that takes a long time. You know, one of the frustrating things about the timing of this lockdown, which is, you know, which I don't disagree with at all, just to make that clear. But one of the frustrating things is over the last year and a half or so, I've sensed that all that hard work, those many years of hard work that so many companies have been doing, is beginning to pay off. Yeah. Because the last 1, 2, 3 production, well, of the last 5 productions I was in, 3 added extra shows, some of them more than 1, and 2 sold out to the extent that they could have added multiple extra shows. So, and the feeling I got from all of those, and those were, you know, in different countries and all over. So it's kind of happening everywhere, it seems. But also you sense that those were really new. That had a difference. I was up in Scotland doing Tosca, and which I'd done twice before in the same production up there, and it felt different this time. There was a buzz about it. The audience, you know, you can sense who the audience is. Yes. And I was like, this isn't the usual people. I mean, the usual people were there, but there were a load of new people too who were, I'm not going to say younger, but they were new. Yeah, diverse. And they were excited. and there was a real energy to it, and it's kind of frustrating that got interrupted just when it did. But I really hope we can pick that. I think one of the things is one of the silver linings of this is surely that appetite is going to be increased because people have been at home for months. Yeah. They're going to want more of it, so we've got to be ready when and hit the ground running.
Yeah, and I think that's the other thing. Where do we go from here? I think part of that is about us as opera singers making sure that we are prepared for where we want to go next. So I've been saying to people, create a plan. What do you want to happen for yourself over the next 6 months? What were the things that you felt that were missing inside what you're doing, or the things that you wanted to cultivate? Who did you want to collaborate with? Build that now. Don't wait for us to come back to the table. Do it all now. That's really, really important. And in terms of what you were talking about, in terms of watching new performances, what I loved about my experience with Opera Holland Park and with English National Opera is watching those. I mean, Opera Holland Park had schools performances, but E&O had performances where on Saturday nights they would give away free tickets to under 18s. And the madness in the audience, the buzz, the exhilarating feeling of those kids jumping out of their seat, the energy that they got from seeing what we were doing was just off the chart.
Yeah.
And if we could bring more of that,
it's a problem, and it's a difficult one to know how to solve without. And I'm talking about this business of opera audiences wanting to behave a certain way.
Yeah.
It doesn't come from us. We're not standing there going, "Oh, you can only clap there, or you should laugh now." That horrible thing of an audience of the opera audience laugh, the knowing laugh, where they laugh because they know they're supposed to laugh at this point. And I remember pretty much the very first opera I did was Figaro up in the valleys in South Wales at the Blackwood Miners Institute. And the first night we did it in English in the Dent translation, which is 100 years old and shows it. But that first recit, and Figaro goes, where Susanna says, he wants to reassert the droit de seigneur. And Figaro goes, does he? I like that. That's what I call a nobleman. He just does what he likes. And the audience laughed. And I thought, like, not an opera laugh, like a genuine laugh at the line. And I thought, this is a mining community. They know noblemen better than the real behaviour of noblemen, as well as Da Ponte and Mozart did. So, and I thought, wow, this works. This actually. And the moment, the revelation of the birthmark and that Marcellina's his mum got a genuine gasp. And I thought, this is theatre. This is a story. This is the people can respond to this in a way that isn't that business of I've seen this 15 times and I want everyone to know that I've seen it 15 times. And that's what you get with kids in the audience, because kids are honest. You can't bluff them. And if they're enjoying it, they'll let you know, and if they're not, they'll let you know. We did a schools performance of Tosca in Derry back in 2011.
I used to live in Derry. You mean Derry in Ireland?
Yeah.
I used to live there.
Did you? What an amazing place. So we did. So
behind we did university.
We did Act 1 in the Protestant cathedral, which was breathtaking. They allowed us to build a Catholic altar halfway up the nave of the Protestant cathedral, which was just mind-boggling. I'm coming from with a family that part of the world and knowing the history, you just think how this was just breathtaking that they'd allowed us to do that. Second act was in the Guildhall, and then the third act in St Colum's Hall, and the school's performance came on a Scarpia at the end, and this business of pantomime booing, which we talk about, is just such a pain. This wasn't a pantomime boo. This was a genuine, because we'd played it. It hadn't set it in Northern Ireland, made no reference to anything. It was set sort of in a vaguely East German type regime. We had East German army uniforms, which we were walking through town in, which was not good. Covered in blood, covered in stage blood. The taxi drivers were loving that. But so there was no explicit reference to who's who or any parallels with the situation there historically. But they recognized something in it, and and you know their response was just visceral hatred. It was the best boo ever.
You know you've done your job properly then, don't you?
Yeah. And it was the opposite. That's why I'm kind of a bit intolerant of the pantomime booing, because I'm like, if you want to do it properly, or don't do it at all. You know, don't do this half, don't do this clever booing. It's just like But I think it's the same with standing ovations. Do you know what I mean? I'm very, very sparing about standing ovations, and I've been part, and it's because I've been part of one once. At Cardiff Singer, where the Korean soprano did Violetta, and the whole audience just went woomph at the end together. There was none of this kind of like, oh, everybody else is standing, maybe I should. It just happened, and I'm like, if it's not, if you had to think about it, then it's too late.
Yeah, but if it's real, it's great. We're gonna have to start wrapping up. So I'm gonna answer I'll ask some of these before, but I could talk to you all day, Paul. So Stephen says, any thoughts on how opera can appeal to a young adult audience, which may be necessitated now that the older audience will be the very last to want to come back to the theatres? Is the art form itself in need of renewal, or just how it's presented to the outside world?
Here's my thought on how to get young people interested in opera: is ban it for them. Tell them they can't come and see it till they're 30. That'll get them interested. I'm joking, but there's a kind of there is a slightly serious point behind that, which is, if you're at the opera, if you got, how do we get 23-year-olds to go to the opera? I think 23-year-olds should have better things to do than go to the opera, frankly. And if not, they're doing their life wrong. I don't think I think we need to be careful what we think about what we mean when we say younger audiences.
Yes, exactly.
I don't think there's anything wrong. I think we shouldn't neglect the sort of 40-somethings.
Exactly.
And if people don't come to opera till they're 40, that's fine. So I don't think we should be so fixated on the actual age. I think we should leave the door open. Because if we target 25-year-olds so heavily, we're really sending a message out to the 45-year-olds who are probably more likely to want to come. So we should leave the door open. It shouldn't be so age specific. It should be more to do with ensuring that you can get access to it, and you know how to do it, and you know how to get the cheaper tickets when you come to it. And the second thing is, you plant those seeds. This taps into what we were talking about before about long-term solutions. You plant those seeds in school. So if we get, if you get access to it when you're 12, 13, 15, 8, 17, and then you come back. I've done Noah's Flood a few times, and the number of people who've said to me when I've mentioned Noah's Flood, I did that at school. And they remember it. And that's what brings them back to opera when they're older. And it might take 20 or 30 years, but you plant those seeds early, and they come back. Like I say, by the time they're 18, they've got other things on their mind, and that's fine, but we'll be here for them when they come back, and we need to leave the door open. I think that's the important thing.
I think you bring up such a great point there, Paul. I mentor people, but I normally mentor people. My actual group that I love is between the age of 35 to 65. People say to me, why do you mentor people between the age of 35 to 65? What's that? Well, to me, they are called the forgotten age group. They filter this way and they filter that way. And they are the people that people think they should have it all together and they should have it all worked out. Well, newsflash, that's not real. They are the people that make the most changes in their lives, start new careers, and as you say, start doing things that they wish they'd done, or any regrets that they feel that they've had in their life, they start wanting to be able to access. And so, I really understand what you say. Sometimes they are the young audience. Yeah,
it's never too late.
It's never too late, ever, ever, ever. So Sani is saying, Nyafa Arts Collective, Nyak London. Yes, we aim for quality and innovation, doesn't everyone? And our work is art integrity focused. We get a diverse audience due to rep and interpretation and quality. As far as ticket prices go, over costs and feel awesome. And it's standard to provide food at our rehearsals. Lovely. That, Sani, I'm with you all the way on that. Exactly. Asani says opera is boring until it's not. Stephen says, in answer to you answering his question, he says good point. And Stephen says spent most of my early 20s at Metallica and Slade concerts.
That doesn't surprise me. I could have guessed that.
Drum and bass and jungle, Stephen, so I know exactly what you're talking about. And Claire Pendleton was saying, ditto, Stephen, it was Guns N' Roses, Aerosmith and Black Crowes gigs in my 20s. So yeah. It's so wonderful to talk to you, and I'm going to have to kind of wrap it up because Paul, I could talk to you forever. So have you got 3 tips from each of your, as an opera singer, as a blogger, and as a video gamer, because I think you're very authentic in all 3, and it's really lovely to be in the presence of someone who is authentic in all 3 of the things.
Oh, bless you.
So it would be really nice to hear, as you know, and for everybody else listening, what kind of your 3 tips would be.
So here's my 3 tips. Number 1, video gaming. Play the character. I play a lot of role-playing games, open world RPG games, and I think it's a lot more fun when you've got that storyline if you get into the character rather than play it as yourself. This is my tip for my little brother, really, who's always just going around killing people and running them over in his car, and I'm like, that's got a limited amount of appeal. You should play the character. If the character's a good guy, play a good guy, and if he's a bad guy, you get a lot more out of it.
Yeah, and that's the same. That could apply for opera as well, couldn't it? Because you've got to play the character, like really get into them, and sometimes people don't. They just sing the aria. That's a very good point.
Well done. Yeah, so there we go. That's a transferable skill. That tip. Number 2. This is for my blogging. You can't edit a blank page. Which is the best piece of advice I got given, because you just sit there going, well, how do you write? And that blank page is intimidating. So you just got to start writing, and then you can change it. Hemingway said, write drunk and edit sober. There's something to that as well. But anyway, you've got to start, and that's the way to get out of writer's block. It's like we were saying before, it's like a muscle. You've got to practice, you've got to exercise it, and then it grows.
Yeah.
And then number 3 for singing, be yourself, which sounds quite simplistic, but by that I mean you got to find out who you are as an artist. Don't forget, I think that's something that gets forgotten in a lot of our training at colleges, especially, is that we're artists, and you've got to express something about yourself. We spend a lot of time training on the technical aspects and the languages and so on, but ultimately you've got to work out who you are and what you want to say. And then that taps into what we were saying before about getting your own definition of success, because this is otherwise, if you're not clear about who you are and what you want to be and what you want to do, or more than that, how you want to do it, you take one step in the wrong direction and you think, well, it's just slightly, I'll just do this one job doing this thing that I don't really want to do. And 10 years down the line, you've gone off and you've ended up somewhere else, being very successful, from an external point of view, but doing something that isn't the thing that you wanted to do. So don't become a victim of your own success, and that comes back to knowing who you are and being yourself.
Yeah, Paul, I love that. I love that last one. Especially when I'm coaching people and my clients, I get them to write out their full goal, right? That how they want it to look over 12 months, how they want it to look over 2 years, 3 years. And then I get them to work backwards. What are all the things that you have to do in order to make that happen? That way, they know that they're always going towards their goal, and they're not going to do that. They're not going to go off the thought. And if they're halfway through that and they realize, oh, actually, I don't want to do that to get that, then they better pick another goal.
Well, it's that thing, isn't it? There's a saying, if you don't know where you're going, then every step is a step in the wrong direction. Exactly. And, I've been saying to people over this time, I call it safe at home. Other people call it lockdown, about planning time. I'm not talking about planning time so you can stay in a state jacket. I'm telling you to plan your time so you can empower your state of mind. So you're the one that's making the choices in how your life lives. Then you're not going to be looking at the government and going, oh, why are they making me stay inside? Why are they making me do this? You're in control. When you take that autonomy back for yourself, you become one of the most powerful people in your world, and that's the most important. And then you can influence, then you can inspire, and then you can walk towards the goals that you really want. Really, 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 really important. I'm just going to
go down here. Rebecca's saying, brilliant, that session. Thank you both. Sani is saying, Paul, you have such a friendly face, demeanor. He does.
Oh,
I really agree, Sani. He really does. He's like, you just want to put him on you feel like Father Christmas in a way, Paul. It's quite interesting.
I wish I was.
You are in your heart, which is lovely. And Michael Carter Young says, Wotan, I have this vision of you doing Bluebeard, and I can't get it out of my head now.
Yeah, let's make that happen.
Oh, we got to make that happen. And
it.
Michael, you're conducting then, because Michael's a conductor.
Fabulous.
So that's it. We're done. We're doing that.
It's happening.
Me and him. That's done.
You heard it here first.
Yeah, exactly. Claire is saying, yay. Sani is doing his yes. Know thyself. Chi Chi. Oh, lovely, Chi Chi, to see you here. Wanaku is saying, thank you for the enlightening chat. Claire is saying amen. Tanya is saying, I think she's put a symbol, so I can't read the symbol.
It's a love thing.
Yeah. Oh,
emoji.
Yeah. There we go. Thank you, Tanya. And then Susan is saying, my son is a gamer during his time off work.
Nice one.
Lovely to hear a Welsh accent. Love the last tip. Thank you both. Stay safe.
Oh.
Everybody, tomorrow where I'm going to have Alice Wallace. She's the director of Opening Doors London, which is an organisation that supports the LGBT community over the age of 50 to have a happy and supported and independent life. So we'll be having Alison with us tomorrow. Joe Goldsmith says, this has been fabulous. Thank you, Joe, for being here. And Michael says, oh, yes. So before we go, right, two things. Where can we find you, Paul? Because you, in your magnificence, where can we find you?
You can find everything via my website, paulcareyjones.net. There you can find my YouTube channel and my blog. And if you send me a message, I'll even send you a link to my gamer YouTube channel. You can watch me playing video games.
You know what? We're not even going to do that. We're going to put it in the comments. I want you to put all of those in the comments so we can access what we like. We want to see all of you. We want to celebrate and champion and connect with all of you, Paul.
You can watch my beard video. You'll love it.
Yes, where you're growing your beard. I want to say. So before we go, because I'm way over time. I'm over an hour now. I'm not supposed to be 30 minutes. Chichi did this to me as well. I'm like, you two just so great to talk to. I can't stop the conversation. So what was I saying? What would be your final thoughts? It doesn't have to be on what we spoke about. It can be on anything you want. What final thought would you like to leave us with, my darling?
Well, the thing I've loved most about this weird time we're living through is the amount that I've communicated with people and got back in touch with people that you kind of don't have time to do when you're rehearsing or whatever, and you think, I don't want to talk to anyone because I want to rest my voice. And the number of creative ideas that have come out just from those conversations without any sort of direction or control over it, just they've emerged from this process of exchanging ideas, of just having a chat, has been amazing. And I'd recommend everyone to just keep talking to each other and see where it takes you.
Oh, it's been amazing to connect with you. I didn't know you. We met on a live virtual Zoom, but in my heart, I knew we connected. I could feel it. And I've had you here today, and I was right. Thank you for showing up and just being so honest, authentic, real, true, so open, so flexible. I cannot wait to work with you.
Oh, me too.
To get you on stage and be in relation with you in that way. I think it's going to be so exciting, and I really do believe that you are quite a trailblazer, actually. So whatever you are doing and however you're going to show up next, I just support you. And if I can be of any support system along the way, I've got your back.
Oh, thanks, darling.
Thank you so much. And
thanks for having me.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you for being part of the conversation. It's been so lovely to have you all here. Sani is saying, what a cool ass chat. Thanks, Paul. Bravo, Nadine. Take care, everybody. Thank you so much. Sending love. Bye-bye.